Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show hosted by a French professor who wasn't planning on doing a video about the new 3 songs by 100 Gecs, but I think I have to because I think they're trying to tell us something. I think they just announced their new album's coming out in March. I don't know what. I'm pretty excited about it in this house. My son is a huge fan, like most people. He started off ironically as a fan, and now he's a real fan. But there's 3 songs here, and each one of them communicates something different about the direction that they're going. I think each one of them is important. I think each one of them represents a departure from the last album, and each one of them sort of reinforces their artistic vision, which I think, they're so memeable and they're so fun and so young and so of the moment that people might forget, that they're real artists. And I feel like in these 3 songs, we're getting this setup. So what are they up to? One second, my camera's a little bit tilted. You don't care, you're a 100 Gecs fan. You like stuff that's aggravating. So is this plant. Look at this plant. How aggressive is that plant in my frame? Anyways, we'll just leave it there. Smash the like bucket if you like the plant. Subscribe if you don't. I was being cute. I sort of said, 100 Gecs in some ways is like the Simon and Garfunkel of this generation. If Paul Simon was a lady, you know what I mean? They are very, the same way Simon and Garfunkel represented a certain kind of attitude of the 60s. You really, that's what you get. That's what I get from 100 Gecs. So I'm excited to see where they're going. I think it's really important that we follow it. And let's start off with the first song, Hey Big Man. Hey Big Man, I love the 90s. I do. I grew up in the 90s. It wasn't too hard where I was in America. It was an easy time to be. And this is very clearly, very ostensibly, a nod to the Beastie Boys. Now, maybe you're younger than 40 years old. Maybe you're younger than 30 years old. Maybe you're younger than 20 years old. Whatever it is, you might not know the Beastie Boys or their importance. They were sort of famous in the beginning as being one of the white rappers who was accepted in the mainstream, partly because they were white and making rap music. All of their music was great. They moved on to real instruments, which made them distinguished from most other rap acts. But the thing that made them really interesting to me, in retrospect, is that they weren't a hip-hop band. They were a punk band that made hip-hop. Does that make sense? They were 3 dudes from Brooklyn who made music together, and they made punk music, and then hip-hop came out, and they realized, well, this is what punk is. This is how to be a punk, is to do rap. That's how you do punk now. And so they did that. So I think, I don't know, I think we're finding a pretty interesting parallel here, where I think 100 Gecs is a punk band. I think they're a punk band who makes electronica, who makes this genre that people arbitrarily call hyperpop. I think they have that punk spirit, that FU spirit, that let's break stuff spirit, that's let's go see that thick-necked jerk over there and tell him what for. And that's what the song is. This is a song, a punk song, just an absolute banger with a single guitar note sliding up and down, the voice is doubled, the drums are totally blown out. But if you can listen to the song without moving or wanting to slam dance or wanting to put your fist through a wall or wanting to stomp, you don't have a pulse. It's just that kind of exciting, it's just absolutely. I'm going to make myself look like a fool. I'm a 45-year-old man. I can't be stomping around. I can't be slam dancing with my dogs. You know what I'm saying? But what they do is a trick that the Beastie Boys would sometimes do as well, or these sort of the kind of punk hip-hop crossover. The instruments cut out when they start singing with these great double blown-out voices, and you just get so excited because the words are aggravating and they're in your face and they're just drugs and violence and blah. But the thing is, the whole time that the vocals are going, you're like, please bring back that guitar. Bring back those blown-out drums. And that's how it is. The whole song goes through. This is a 6-minute project. I'm already on minute 4 just talking about the first song. I shotgunned a beer and I threw it at your mother. Then I stole your car keys and threw them in a gutter. I smoked 2 bricks and now I can't pronounce anemone. I went to a party. I did a human centipede. I'm smoking hash and I'm hugging on a cactus. Now I got Vans all bouncing on your mattress. This is very sort of typical, outrageous, punky, humorous lyrics, which are very akin to many punk lyrics. Dead Milkmen, sort of in that era. Obviously exaggerated because I'm going to presume, I don't know if it's Laura or Dylan who's singing this verse, but obviously they're not actually doing a human centipede, and obviously they're not that high or whatever it is. It's just this super great, youthful, energetic break stuff, and it's anger at rednecks. I will talk about it every time I talk about 100 Gecs. I've spent a little bit of time in suburban St. Louis, and it's no joke. It really is a very different place. It is, I imagine, a very hostile place to be young and different. So it makes sense that they would have this kind of anger. And like at a certain point towards the end, like they even do some techno tricks. It's almost like rap rhythms. There's like a subtle step, a subtle stutter step, a subtle stutter step, a subtle stutter step. There's a subtle stutter step in this song where the rhythms just get a little bit more interesting, and there's all these super aggravating sounds. And that's the thing, I was talking to my son about this. He's like, I don't know, some of these new songs, they sound kind of pop. They sound like they're kind of going pop. We'll get to that soon. But here they're making it clear, don't worry, we're still going to make music that your parents are going to say, what is that mess? What is that sound? What is that garbage? Unless their parents grew up listening to punk and Beastie Boys and host a YouTube channel. Aggravating plant. I'm going to call this leaf Laura right here. Look at her. She's just all up in my face. Next song is called Torture Me featuring Skrillex. Hey, I love Skrillex. It's Alex Jones is not across the table from me asking me if I'm serious. But I do. I like Skrillex. I think Skrillex has done a lot of great things. I think he is a positive force in music. I think he is a positive force in art. I didn't know what dubstep was, so I'm aware that his influence maybe hurt the dubstep movement as it originally was. I understand that brostep is not the same thing as dubstep. I understand all that. But when I was in my musical death period, when I wasn't listening to any new music, that was one of the things that I overheard someone play somewhere. And I said, what is that? That's the sound I want to hear. And I bought all the Skrillex I could find. And even though I didn't listen to any new music, that's what I listened to, because I heard the waka waka waka, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It is the coolest thing ever. So this is fascinating because here we have 100 Gecs, the sort of the new wave of electronic music and pop and all that, working with Skrillex, who has sort of turned into sort of an elder statesman at this point. But what I love is how this is a mixture of their two sounds. Their two, like the beginning, it sounds kind of like typical pitched up hyper pop, but then also it sounds like a typical buildup of a Skrillex song. The lyrics are fine. Do you really want to torture me? And then we get the first real bro step-ish breakdown, but mixed in with the distortion and the vocals of hyperpop. Is this hyperstep? Is that what we're doing here? Are we trying to move towards hyperstep? Is that what 100 Gecs is up to? Working with Skrillex? Making hyper Beastie Boys and hyper step? And then there's a second drop later after they repeat the verse. And that's even better. And then this crazy, total fractured sounds. The high, low, and the little quiet bit. You always have to have, Skrillex always has to have that little quiet part where you're like, and then before the waka waka, and it's like, it's just great. I love it. I love Brostep. I love Skrillex. I love 100 Gecs. I love San Dimas. All of it, all together, it just really works. And again, it's like, what are they saying? What are they up to? What's 100 Gecs up to? What have they been up to? 2 songs here, and they're totally different. Let's pin it with the third song, Runaway. Pop. It's like a gentle pop song with a piano. Laura's voice is beautiful. Just this high, sweet voice, doubled and tripled. And she even sings about being caught in a landslide. And anytime you hear a female vocalist talking about a landslide, you're immediately taken away to Landslide by Stevie Nicks. So I think that's kind of intentional. It's even that kind of realm. And this is where I think, what can a punk aggravating band do that's the most punk? The most punk they can do is not be punk all the time. Okay? It's to make songs like this. Because then you're aggravating with sweetness. Then you're making a statement for personal vision, not a statement for some kind of movement. Because, movements and schools, they're just fashion, okay? Artists make art, so whatever. Punk singers have, for the past 50 years, decided to make a song that's more melodic. And all the people with the safety pins through the nose and the patches their mom sewed on to their leather jackets are all pissed. You sold out the movement. Metallica cuts their hair, Like this is just what happens. And this is, I think, a very declarative statement saying, that they're not going to just be what everyone wants them to be. It's interesting because the lyrics are caught in a dream, but it wasn't for me. So maybe this is about the dream of 100 Gecs. Maybe 100 Gecs doesn't want to be the Simon and Garfunkel of the Zoomer generation. Maybe they don't want to be these spokespeople who represent this fractured online Laura, this weird online thing that's going on in the new youth and all that. Maybe they don't want that. Maybe they just want to be artists who are making music. That might be what this is saying. It builds up, more layers behind, builds up to a drop. It does get a little bit harder with these metal guitar chords but they're very resolving. Like the even though there's these blasts of guitar, the chord structure that's kind of in a box, it sort of resolves. Later, there's like the same notes being played, a single note on a guitar, which is quite nice because it sort of reminds you of the single note on the first song, Hey Big Man, except there it was all slidey and then we get to some pretty challenging lyrics on the bridge. There's all this kind of screaming and guitar notes in the back. Now you're lying on the floor. What the F was that for? So you never wanted more than this. That's okay. Pussy out, run away. Yeah, I understand. I just think it's effing gay. And so I think this is interesting because last week I had an interview with Carpet Garden. If you haven't seen it, it's one of my better underviewed episodes. And they also identify as queer, and they use the term gay in the same way. So it's just interesting. 2 times in 1 week are people reclaiming the usage of gay as a slur, but using it in precisely the same way that I used it growing up in Boston, not knowing I was part of a homophobic society. Laura made me say that. A homophobic society that would use gay as an insult. It's interesting how it's being recapitulated here, but also it represents, I think, a certain amount of conflict. In both cases, it reflects a certain amount of conflict because it's sort of internalized homophobia, which it doesn't matter how queer you are or how much of an ally you are. All that internalized homophobia is still inside you. You can get it out as much as you possibly can, but it's like a stain. It's like a stain on the bottom of a mug, you know? And it's like you can get the mug clean and you can drink out of the mug, but that stain, that little stain of whatever, racism, sexism, homophobia, it's still there. That's the world we live in. We can't get rid of the stain. We just have to live with it and not stain anyone else. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking. That's where they're going. I think they're making a statement of their artistic integrity. I think they're going to go in all these different directions, and I can't wait. I think this album is going to be 10 times the album. It's a joke, because the album might be called 10,000 Gecs, and the last one is called 1,000 Gecs. That's why you're here, for the humor. All right, smash the like bucket. I'm going to go watch some soccer. There's the camera.